Welcome to the Noodle Podcast. We are Kate and Max, and we love noodling on what we've learned by accident. This podcast is a space where we share how to get the best out of ourselves and the people we've worked with. In today's episode, we talk about the Sunday night dreads. When is your instinct or your intuition telling you something that you should act on? And how do you create space and time to notice what your gut's telling you?
Okay, so podcast number 6.
Yeah.
Yes, 6. So what's this one about?
This one is about noticing when you feel uncomfortable with a situation or a particular maybe working or not working relationship. Where do you feel that, and what decisions are you making as a result of that discomfort? So I think we're calling it trust your gut.
You love that word.
I hate the word gut.
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut, because often we know more than we think we do, and our body is a great information receptor and provider. But when we're busy or stressed, we're not paying attention to that until sometimes it's a little bit too late,
yes,
or on the edge of you're about to burn out or make some
yes,
really terrible decisions. So the value in trusting that you know more about this situation than you think you do. I think it's trust your gut. What's it telling you?
Yes. Yes, and exploring what it's telling you, because it's not always obvious or straightforward. The first reaction that you have, example, getting ready to do some work with a team, going into that organisation to do some diagnostic work, as we call it, but to go and meet people, have chats, understand what it's like for the people working in a particular team. And on this particular occasion, I remember going into this company, and from the minute I was arriving into that building, I was getting lots of data, which I didn't notice at the time.
Getting lots of data in terms of?
So they weren't ready for me. They didn't have a room for me. When they did have a room for me, I could have it for this amount of time, but not for that amount of time. Then I had to move. When I tried to get some sellotape, it was a problem. Sellotape? Well, no, I haven't got any. And not passing me on to somebody else. And slowly through this particular afternoon, when I was trying to do work there and meet people, I started to get really sense of frustration and confusion. Do they not want me to do this work? What's going on?
It sounds like you were really not welcomed at all.
Yeah. And then I was experiencing that sort of sense of, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, or so started to get a bit confused myself, and then stopping and saying, actually, hang on a minute, what am I noticing? And what is that telling me? And realising what I was actually getting was data on what it was like to work there. It wasn't specific to me. It was a pattern of what's it like for anybody in this team. And this data was there for, it wasn't that I wasn't experiencing it, I was, but it was also an additional piece of information I could use to understand, so what's it like for this team working in this organisation? What's it like for the way that they support one another or don't support one another?
Yeah.
What's it like for the support they get outside coming in? But just a really interesting moment that it took a while for me to register.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
This is important.
So you went from, oh dear, what have I done wrong? Or I'm just annoying them, or there's a reason why they're not helping me. It's because I haven't found the right way in here, which I think we do a lot when we're working with new people or people we want to impress.
Yes.
And you find you're somehow not hitting it,
Yeah.
and you try even harder.
Yes.
And then, like you say, at some point it's really helpful to go, hang on a minute, stop. What's all of this way of people behaving telling me? They can't necessarily get out of this situation, and they can't stop themselves from behaving this way, and it's all being transferred. I've done that a few times, found myself working harder to impress, trying to find the answer, trying to fix the problem, and getting to a point where, it's really unpleasant for me.
Yes.
Because I'm not sleeping very well and working all the weekends, and fearful that I'm going into meetings or conversations with a particular, person or team, that it's just not gelling. And that's when it's really good to be in a partnership with you, or to have, good friends and family who'll go, you're acting a bit weird. Don't
Bit weirder than normal.
Thank you. And then we can talk it through.
Yes.
So often if I'm saying, no, I can't go out, I can't stop at 5, I can't do this, I can't do that, it'll be, why not? Because I have to do this. Yes. Do you? What is it you're actually trying to do and why? And then doing that thing, stop, slow down. What is going on here? And listening to what's your body telling you? Do you feel it in your gut? Do you get those Sunday night fears, the dreads? I've had that. I think we've all had that.
We've all had that.
Yeah.
To varying degrees.
Some people don't have it in their stomach. They'll feel a weight on their shoulders.
Yeah.
Or tension headache. Or tight teeth, jaw, tightness in the chest or the throat. And it's a sense of stuckness, dis-ease. And that's why it's intuition that you need to listen to. Intuition often is what's going on just below the level of your consciousness. Unless you slow down and talk it through with someone, it's really hard to go, okay, what's this telling me? What's going on here? I love looking at what's the difference between instinct and intuition.
What is the difference between instinct?
Thank you for asking, Maxine. So instinct, as I understand it, is more around fear. And fear can be a really good thing. We are looking for those things that are going to cause us problems. Yeah. That we might need to have that sense of, stay very still. Yeah. What's that? Freeze. Yeah. Or what do I need to run away from? Flight. Or fright. Yes. Or freeze or fright. Those things that you're instinctively trying to reduce pain or threat. Yeah. Yeah. And so instinct is a good thing. Right? But it means it operates quite quickly. And how often are you driven by what your instinct is doing? And if that's about fear, so, if you're fearful to make a decision, for example, so you're not making decisions, is that you being smart, or could you actually be smarter by addressing the fear? Going, what is it I'm afraid of? What's the worst that can happen? What's the best that could happen if I make this decision? Whereas intuition, so neither of these are right or wrong, just notice what typically is pushing you. Intuition is that level of, it's a slower acting energy. It's below the level of consciousness. Your body probably knows what's going on. You're feeling those headaches or tense jaw or whatever. Pay attention to it.
You're reminding me of the game I play. When it's good, it's really, really good. And when it's bad, it's horrid.
Yes.
And it's a line-up. And we get people standing opposite one another. Have we talked about this before?
No, I don't think we have.
So just getting people to talk about, how would you notice in me, if you were looking at me, that I was feeling, I think what you're describing there would be the fear reaction. And what would that mean for how I'm talking? Does my voice change? Does my eye contact, that sort of thing?
Yes.
And noticing the difference, because then you're noticing in yourself the body reaction, whether that's an intuition-driven reaction or an instinct-driven reaction, but you're noticing the body shift, which is what you're talking about.
Yes.
Trust your gut. It's telling you something.
We may have talked about that when we were talking about badly behaved people aren't necessarily bad. And it's that thing, how am I behaving? How am I acting in certain situations? What triggers me to do that? There's something about the brain as well that you learn that behaviour. It might have suited you very well. It might have got you to a certain position where you could fight for your rights and stand up and be heard or whatever. But now perhaps you're doing it too much or all the time or without thinking about it. And it's less than helpful, and it's making people draw back rather than be drawn towards what it is that you're trying to do.
It's not always about things going wrong, though. If I think about one of the best managers that I ever worked for, she was very good at creating space to allow my ideas, or I was going to say intuition or instinct. I was just thinking, I don't know which one it would have been there, but for created the space for me to be able to bring those things to the surface when I hadn't yet been able to articulate them.
Right.
So she wouldn't expect me to always come with a fully formulated idea. Yeah. She would literally ask the questions around, so what are you noticing? What's going on? So somehow she brought that stuff to the surface. Yeah. And through working with her and for her, I learned to trust myself more quicker. So that became something where I was like, oh, actually, I'm having some ideas and noticing some observations about the way we're working, or the way that we're not working, or the possibilities that we could lean into.
Yes.
But without having somebody help you to realise that you're realising things.
Yes.
You don't always get there as quick as you could.
It really depends on the culture that you're working within as to whether you feel safe enough to do that, doesn't it? Or even the relationship. Is it a trusted relationship where you can talk about those? I mean, it's still so prevalent that you're not supposed to talk about feelings or emotions. It gets in the way of being productive. I think more and more we recognise that's not true at all. You're a whole person. You're not just your work self. Yes. So where you're feeling elated or excited or nervous or worried, being able to give that emotion some space and then go, so what's that telling me? What does that mean? How can I move forward? How can I use this? Or how do I need to address it? I think that's being recognised more and more as a way to help people be at their best. It's by not ignoring those signs that might be bubbling up.
So if you're managing people or you're managing a team, this stuff's really important, not just about yourself, but about creating enough space for other people. And enough space sounds a little bit cheesy and a bit, that whole holding the space or whatever, but it is not speaking all the time when you're in a moment with someone and just saying, how's it going? What have you noticed about the last week? Asking the right questions and then giving people enough space to answer them so that they can notice in themselves, oh, yes, I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling that, and how is that helpful?
And noticing, if you're brave enough to say to somebody in a one-to-one conversation or whatever, how are you feeling about X, whatever the project is that you're working on, how are you feeling about it? Notice if they deflect that. Because unless you're used to talking about and comfortable enough to talk about your feelings, you'll probably say, well, I notice so-and-so isn't doing such and such, and you'll just notice people going off into a different space, and you have to have the courage to bring it back, because there's so much information you can get from how are you feeling about this really, and what does that mean, and how can you use that more?
Particularly because I think people avoid having conversations that might be uncomfortable, difficult, where they don't know. So there's that sense that I can't say that I'm feeling uncomfortable or unsure or uncertain unless I can say, what about? Yeah, actually, I think what we're saying is that we know more than we realise. We've just got to give it a bit of space to grow. Say, I'm not feeling right about this. Okay. And you and I have had these conversations where we've decided, are we going to do particular projects or work with particular clients, and we're having that, shall we pitch for this piece of work, and getting excited about the possibility, but then something just not feeling right. And more and more we now trust our instinct, but we take the time. Or instinct, intuition, which one is it?
It's either of them are okay, but sometimes your instinct is the thing that's saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this piece of work. I don't want to, I'm feeling really worried about having this conversation, so I'm going to put it off. When you're procrastinating about doing a bit of work, that's often instinct, fear, keeping you safe. If you don't start it, you can't get it wrong. That happens so much, doesn't it? But you're right. I think more and more we're willing to listen to that and say, actually, there are times when we should have walked away from situations that were difficult sooner than we did. And we know now it's okay to do that. As long as we've checked in and said, am I running away from something, giving up on it too quickly? Or am I just going at this thing and trying to fix it, and it's not within my power to fix? It isn't actually about me. So having the courage to say, no, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to put my attention elsewhere. That typically tends to serve us well. But you do, like you just said, it helps if you have someone you can talk that through with, because otherwise you can just go round and round and round and keep on beating yourself up for not finding the answer. So working with a coach helps, or a trusted colleague at work, or somebody else who just gets it and can point out where this might have happened before. You might not even realise that you're following a pattern of behaviour or thought processes.
And creating that space for other people. So if you're a manager, try not to solve their problems for them, and allowing them to have the space to realise what they know and what they think they could do about it.
Yeah.
So in trusting our gut then, I think we're saying listen to all of your body, not just your head.
When you're feeling maybe a little bit, it's not what you're right. It's not always about feeling discomfort, but you're noticing that you're maybe stuck with something, an idea, you don't know how to move it forward, or you're worried about something, or even if you're particularly kind of really on the edge of something.
Yeah, excited. You can be excited, but we've talked about work before where I've been excited about it, but then we've made a choice not to do it, because when we've explored it, we've looked at what it was that was exciting about it, and then we've unpacked that and gone, oh, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
So I think it's trust your body, trust your instinct, but then look at what is happening that's creating that feeling. So beware your own biases and prejudices, or you know, and then remember as well, for other people, don't suffocate the people around you.
Yes.
Give
and
them
check
space.
that you aren't joining the dots that aren't there, maybe making meaning out of something that isn't happening. I've seen this before, so I know what's going to happen. We keep on saying this: stop, slow down, retrace your steps. What's really going on here? How do you know that that's going to help you? Or is there a different way round or through this problem?
So
trust your gut.
Thank you very much for joining us today. We'd love to know what you think and any experiences that you have that you're happy to share. Please leave a message for us on www.noodle.space. Don't forget to subscribe, share and leave us a review. We'll see you next time.